What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And today I'm going to go over this idea of failure. Um, I was on a live on an Incredible Javier's channel, and I heard somebody talk about how they were a failure because of some incident involving their kid, in which their kid and their family was embarrassed and the parent acted out of pocket. And then I was actually watching a video on Triple OG's page, and he made a video that was critical of somebody else's content, of course, and in that, the person who was criticizing had said, "I would consider myself a failure if my kids grew up to be gang members," and that alerted me and alarmed me, and so I wanted to touch on those, and then I'll provide some steps or some perspective shift in terms of determining, man, are we really failures, or are we just struggling at something, or is this an opportunity, etc. So, anyways, let's get down to business. As a parent, as a role model, as an older sibling, whatever role you may have where others are looking to you to set an example, a lot of times we will turn around and be like, oh man, I failed. This happened and I failed. And if that relationship still exists, if that opportunity still exists, then it's pretty hard to say that you failed, right? We make mistakes. We handle things inappropriately. We learn lessons the hard way. We do our best sometimes and then find out later that there was another way to do things. Those are not in and of themselves, those things don't make you a failure. So experiencing failure does not make you a failure. There's a huge difference in my opinion. And so, for example, for me, I would hope that my children do not grow up to engage in the same kind of activities I did as a young person. But could I honestly say that I failed as a parent if they do? Not necessarily, because my job is not to dictate every step that they choose in life. My job is to prepare them for the world as best as I can, and then support them as they make their own mistakes and as they go through their own journeys. And so I'm their father. I'm their father whether I'm happy with them at the moment, whether I approve of what they're doing at the moment, um, whether they're right next to me or they're on the other side of the world, right? I'm their parent. So that father job, if I'm a failure at it, why keep going, right? And that's the problem with misusing language. If I failed as a parent, why talk to my kid anymore? Why even identify myself as their parent? Why anything? And we can get in our poor me mode and say, "Oh yeah, why do I?" But let's be realistic. Um, sometimes we don't handle stuff right, but again, that doesn't make us a failure. So let's uh, let's get into some of these steps, right? So one, be thankful. Uh, you may have struggled at something. Something might not have gone the way that you planned, right? You may have failed at it. Uh, but no matter what, everybody has something to be thankful for, right? Whether it's a roof over your head or some food to eat or thankful to be alive, thankful to have certain people in our lives. On any given day, no matter what we're going through, if you look, you will find something that you're grateful for. And sometimes that's enough to help shift us from focusing on what we don't have or what we didn't accomplish, and then get us back to recognizing what we do have and what we have accomplished, and live to see another day, right? So there's one, be thankful. Um, Failure sometimes is a sign that you're still pushing, right? If somebody never fails at anything, if they're 100% successful at everything they do, which is unrealistic, then that also means they're living a really boring, reserved life, right? So sometimes failure is just proof that we're getting outside the box, that we're going outside our comfort zone, that we're trying to do a new thing, that we're trying to explore something different, that we took a risk. And life's a risk, I know, right? But seriously, life is about taking some risks, and every day there's an opportunity to take a risk of some sort. Now there's healthy risks and unhealthy risks. There's wise investments, and those are still a risk, versus just foolish investments that still may pay off, but the chances are pretty slim. But so failure is a sign that you're moving, that that you're trying, and that in and of itself is good, right? That's part of what life is. What's next? Three, control what you can. It's not always personal. Sometimes we go for a new position at work. Sometimes we step way out our comfort zone. Sometimes we try to, get on the team, right? And we don't succeed at it. Again, that does not make you a failure, but you failed in that effort, right? But it's not always personal. Sometimes somebody's got a plug. And so you interviewed for a job, but you was really never going to get hired for it anyways because they already had somebody on deck. Sometimes it's a blessing to not get put in a certain position because maybe you're not ready for it. But that interview showed management that you're interested, and now they'll work with you to get you up to speed, right? And so what we can do is control what we can control. And it sounds simple, but we get distracted. We get caught up and focused on things that we cannot influence. And in turn, we neglect the stuff we can influence. When paying attention to the stuff we can influence is what gives us a greater odds of success moving forward, and not just whatever this specific part of life is, but life in general. So control what you can, right? For example, with the kids and gangbanging. I did a video a while back on racial profiling and is it discrimination, right? These robberies that happen in the Bay Area. And one of the people that was arrested for that, I know his family, right? And his family's a good family. They have their own kind of lived experiences, and they did their best to help their keep their kids out the trenches. But the streets can be seductive. The streets can be alluring. Many of us have experienced that. And it doesn't just seduce people that have dysfunctional home lives. Not everybody run around the block had an addicted parent or an absent parent or an incarcerated parent or a super, super strict parent. It varies. But people grow up and make choices. So your kids out there running amok, that's not, don't always take that personal. That's not always on you. And again, you control what you can. Control the influence that you have in their life, but also know that they're going to have to take control of what they can, which is their choices. Step number 4. Let's get this out of here. Sorry about that. You can handle setbacks. Sometimes failure is a good reminder in a sense, and some of these are sort of on the same theme, right? You can handle not succeeding at everything you set out to do, right? You can handle not succeeding right now at something and still wind up accomplishing that later. And so sometimes failure just is kind of a reminder, right? Of, hey, I didn't do it, but I'm not broken. I'm not done. I'm not out the race. My life is not over. And that negative self-talk can get us thinking that way sometimes. Well, since I didn't succeed at this, what use is anything? And sort of ties into what to be thankful for. But on another note, it ties into all that you have overcome in the past, right? So there's that one. Here's number 5. Don't treat a verb as a noun. This is my favorite. And it's the easiest way to put it, right? Fail is an action word, right? I failed at this test. I failed at this assignment. I went on a mission and it failed. And so I failed today in my example in this situation, or whatever it may be. But it's not a noun. It's not an identifying thing, right? You can fail a test in school. That doesn't mean you're a failure as a student. You can overreact with your children and just bad teaching moment, bad parent moment. We've all had them. That doesn't make you a failure as a parent, right? And again, the bounce back from when we mess up a lot of times is a huge lesson for our kids that they need. They need to know how to endure failure in a responsible, healthy, mature way, because there's going to be times they don't succeed either, right? And so it's important to teach them that. So anyway, don't. You can fail and not be a failure. That's the point. Let's see. 6. What is the lesson? Oftentimes when we come up short, there's something to be learned in there. And maybe it's something that's going to help us succeed in a redo, right? Succeed if we try to do this task over again. Other times it's a lesson that'll help us in a completely unrelated part of life. You never know. But take lessons where you can find them. And a lot of times there's more lessons in coming up short, or more lessons in underperforming. More lessons in getting a yes. More lessons in getting a no or getting a denial than there are in getting a yes. And so look and find those lessons. And if you're learning from an experience, then it is not a failure. You got something from it. You may not have got what you intended to get, but you got something. So it wasn't an entire waste. I try to tell people in terms of relationships, that's one way to look at it. Oh, I invested all this time and I was dating this person and it didn't work out. It was a failure. But did you learn stuff in that? Do you have a better idea of what you're willing to accept and what you're not? A better idea of what you like and what you don't like? A better idea maybe of some of your own shortcomings and some of your own weaknesses? What lessons are there, right? There could be positive lessons. Hey, the relationship didn't work out, but I really like this about the person. And I'd like to find that characteristic, again, in somebody else who just has a better, total package or whatever it may be. So find a lesson. And if there's a lesson, then it's not wasted time. Now, if you don't heed that lesson, which I have seen many a times, if you get in a relationship, it goes bad. You see why it went bad. You see how it went bad. So there's a lesson in there. That wasn't a waste of time. Then you go for same relationship 2.0, right? Same person, but maybe this time things will be better. Things don't actually get better. You still are left, holding a bag at the end, right? And so that relationship ends for a second time. And then you say, it was just a failure. It's a waste of time. But you learned a different lesson in there, right? Now, I would encourage you at that point, find a different relationship. And that doesn't mean the next one's going to work out well. But, geez, at least fail different. You know what I mean? This you've already seen. You've already done. And sure, you can probably try time 3. And when that falls apart, as it inevitably will, you can look and say, well, I learned another lesson here. But at some point, the main lesson should be stop putting your hand in the fire when you already know that it's hot, right? At least reach in a different direction. So there's that one. 7, you're building memory. Sort of like working out. Some people that work out and lift weights, they want to check what their max is, right? And so they go to throw up this top weight, and generally you keep going until you hit a weight that you can't lift, right? And whatever the last weight you did lift is, then that's your max. So in that trying to hit the weight that you can't quite handle, you fail to lift it all the way. But there's a little bit of muscle memory in there. You got a taste for what that feels like, right? And that will help you next time you go around. Sometimes we need to stumble, both to remind ourselves that we can endure, right? And so you stumble. Oh, am I getting out here? So you stumble, and you remember that stumbling, but ultimately you wind up walking. You wind up taking a path and you didn't. And it's that looking back. If I move to number 8, maybe it'll make better sense. I'm stumbling myself over my words. So look, you're building memory. Remember the time, right? So these two are kind of tied together. So you stumble and you think back, this ain't the first time I've stumbled. Maybe it's the first time I stumbled in this way. But I have failed before at things that I've attempted. And I'm still here. I'm still at it. I'm still in the game, right? Hopefully a positive, healthy, game that's not going to get you prematurely incarcerated or killed. But, I'm still in it, whatever you're in. And it's that memory of the past stumbles that can kind of give you the encouragement to know that this too will pass. You can endure this as well, right? And that only comes from lived experience. And so sometimes it's hard to see the lesson right away, right? If we go back to number 7, it's hard to see the value of this in the moment. It is. Because you're caught up in what just happened. You just tripped. It's hard to see the value in tripping. But there is value in it if for no other reason you're going to stumble again. And let that be a reminder that you can stumble and bounce back. So anyways, that's the thing. Those are my kind of 8 points to help with some of the negative self-talk in terms of failure. I would love to hear people stop saying that they are a failure. You are not a failure. No matter what you've done, no matter what you haven't done, no matter how you try to slice it, you are not a failure. You are living and breathing if you're watching this video. And that in and itself means you got options. You have choices. You may not have as many options as the next person. You may not have the kind of choices that you prefer to have, but you have options. You have choices. I would encourage you to also then have hope, right? And whatever you have not succeeded at, you have succeeded in living this long. You've succeeded at making it to the point of being able to watch this video. And that counts for something. That matters. That matters to somebody else. That should matter to you. Maybe it seems like it doesn't matter to the people you want it to, but it matters. And so you are not a failure. You have failed. I have failed. We have all failed at multiple things. And newsflash, tomorrow we're going to fail at something else again. That's what life is. But it is not only a series of failures. It's also a series of wins. And sometimes it's just a matter of perspective that helps us realize, hey, maybe this failure is actually a win. So in that context, you are a winner. You are not a failure. All right, you guys, help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you are worth it. Check out the channel. There'll be links to different playlists and content. And if it's your kind of thing, I'd appreciate your support. Until next time.